Tonight, it is every hunter for themselves.
Good luck. I'll be rotting for you.
Of course, it's going to be a horror story implicitly, but the black and white nature of it, the stylized nature with the grain on screen cigarette burns, was that always the approach, or did it kind of evolve along the way?
It was something I wanted to do from the beginning, but it was never a foregone conclusion that we were going to be able to do that, you know? So as we were shooting, I was preparing for it to be that, knowing also someone might say, I don't know, we should probably keep it more like, you know, but to their credit, they allowed me to just keep going in that direction. And after we watched the first version of it in black and white, Kevin Feige turned to me and said, I guess this needs to be in black and white, right? And I was like, yes, it does, yes. And we just went full force. We filmed out the 35 millimeter, everything. We did everything we could to make it as legit as possible.
You go for it viscerally as well. You have some fun gory moments in there. And I felt like, well, I guess the black and white helps. So it's interesting to hear that it might not have been black and white. What were the discussions like about that? And as far as how much are you going to include in this story?
Well, it was funny because every review we have as we're doing editorial reviews and we're talking, or even on set when we're talking about like things happen, I'm like, can we have more blood? Can there be more blood? Can we just get, and they're like, you know, it got to the point where it was a joke. Let me guess, you want more blood? Okay, great. You know, but they trusted me. They allowed me to do it because they knew I was not going to turn this into something that was a sadistic sort of, some sort of massacre movie. That's not what this is. And we never lost sight of what the true story was. And I think as long as you do that, if you keep the story at the focus, you know, at the center of this, which was a story of really a lot of heart and humanity, that as long as that was our focus, I felt like we could get away with a lot more on the fringes with the horror stuff.
This is a standalone story, but it is set within the MCU. And with stuff like Blade on the Way, was it just cool for you to kind of really get to establish this new, for the MCU, corner of this very big world?
Oh, yes. It was amazing. It was also terrifying because we were just like, you know, we were there working on this thing. I've been on this for, 2 years maybe. And knowing that we were going to be the first out of the gate, that felt like a huge responsibility for me. But in the end, I just kept leaning into everything I loved growing up, which was those Universal monster movies, you know, the Hammer films. I loved the Twilight Zone. Every time we would talk about this, I kept saying, think about this as an episode of the Twilight Zone. We are telling this story. That's the story we're telling. We're not worried about what happens over here beforehand. We're not worried about what happens afterwards. We are here.
I definitely geeked out seeing Man-Thing in the trailer. He is, of course, such an out there creature. Did it feel like a natural fit from the start, or was it just like talking about who could be in this thing? It's like, well, what if Man-Thing popped up?
You have so many of those conversations as you're in development, you're working on the story, and there were multiple ideas for different things and different characters, but the thing that made the most sense, and I remember, it was Kevin Feige who asked me what I thought about him. And I was like, what, are you kidding me? It's one of my favorite comic runs in the world. And again, it just added a lot more pressure to me going, oh, not only is this other character, Jack Russell and Werewolf by Night, and then Elsa, these are two of my favorite characters. I'm going to bring them in. Now you're going to give me this too. And I got to bring all of this to the table. But it was all done out of love for these things. And hopefully that comes through. Hopefully you feel that. Because I do love these characters. Too often monsters are looked at or used even in Marvel movies. A lot of times monsters are just used as something to kill, something to defeat. And I'm like, no, monsters are nothing but a person with a problem who can't solve it and needs help solving it. Any of these monsters, everything that I loved as a kid about these films, they were allegories for people with afflictions that need help. And I felt like that's the point of view we need to take with this. It cannot just be about, oh, there's something different, let's destroy it. There's too much of that going on in our world these days. I wanted to do something that was about, no, let's peel back the layers of the onion and understand what's behind this thing being a monster. Why is it happening? None of these monsters want to be monsters. They don't want to go around indiscriminately killing people and destroying things. It's just, that's their lot in life. Everyone has a lot in life. We all have some struggle, some sort of thing that we're struggling to solve or deal with within our own selves. And that's where I wanted to go with the story.
You've got a werewolf, you've got a Man-Thing. It seemed like you got to do a healthy amount on set.
We did absolutely everything on set as much as we could, because from the beginning, I did not want this to be a festival of green or blue screen. You know what I mean? I wanted real sets. So all of those sets are real. Everything you see is real. Like all of those locations, all of that was real. I felt like if we're going to make this something that it's already hard enough to buy into the fact of monsters and all of this, but if we make the environment feel real, not just for the viewer, but for the actors themselves, I thought we had a chance at making this feel like something that could have happened, you know? So any practical effect we did, you know, the shot of the transformation, that's all in camera, you know, like that is all in camera. Like in we really went to great lengths to just do as much that way as we could. So it was just like a fun exercise in old school filmmaking, you know, and it's not to say it doesn't have its veneer of modern visual effects, because it does, and hopefully those are invisible. But that's all, you know. Joe Farrell, our visual effects supervisor, was incredible in embracing as much of the practical as we could. And there's so many great stories about stuff that we did on set that would be fun to talk about at some point later, you know, when we can kind of really pick apart scenes, scene by scene.
Werewolf by night.